to explain Arjuna that you should be in constant awareness. If you really want to experience what Jivan Mukti is, if you really want to experience what liberation within life is, you have to be constantly aware on your senses. Because they are the ones who deceive you the most. They are the ones they wander away the most and does not allow us to concentrate our minds. The same message was given by Janak also to that sannyasi who said, while living in a household life, amidst all the comforts, how can you be Jivan Mukta? And King Janak also explains to that sannyasi, where is your attention? That is the secret. The attention was on the lamp. And as the attention was on the lamp constantly, even while moving and seeing the whole palace, he was able to remain detached. He was not influenced by the beauty that he was seeing. And that is the secret which King Janak explains, that while living in this household life, amongst all the comforts, my attention is on that divine. The divine being, that is, I am an immortal soul, a divine entity, the child of the Supreme. Now, child does not mean I am a part of that Supreme. No, don't misunderstand me. Child and the Father are separate. It does not mean that there is one Supreme Being as a whole, and then there are parts, and every part comes down, and they are all the Supreme. So we are part of that Supreme, so I am also the Supreme. No. In our yesterday's both the chapters, I think it was very clearly explained by God Himself that the soul is also an eternal entity, imperishable, indivisible, immortal, and the Supreme Soul is also eternal, immortal, indivisible, invisible entity. So the existence of the soul and the Supreme Soul is separate. If it is one, then whenever we are committing some or the other action, say charitable action, we never say Punya Paramatma. We always address Punyatma. The soul is a charitable soul. So it is not that the influence of our karmas is not on the soul, it is on the soul. Accordingly, we get the titles. If we have done some great task, we are a great soul, Mahatma. If somebody has done something religious, he is known as Dharmatma. If somebody has done a divine task, he is a Devatma. So Devatmas are many, Mahatmas are many, Punyatmas are many, but Paramatma is only one. It is not something that gets merged. When it is an eternal entity, it cannot be merged. Everybody's existence is separate. So as we proceed on to today's chapters, chapter 6 and chapter 7. Chapter 6 says about the Dhyan Yoga in detail. And what does it tell us? How to meditate. It is completely on meditation. how our external form should be for meditation, how our posture should be for meditation, what are the inculcations that we should have for meditation, what should be our internal stage for meditation. Very deeply, God Himself has explained to Arjuna, where there are no doubts. Each and every questions that we have in our mind were in the minds of Arjuna also, and they are very perfectly answered by God. So here God clarifies Ashtanga Yoga in the right method to practice it. Concentration of our attention on God and the difficulties that the mind has to face in concentration. From verse 1 to verse 4, the topic of Karma Yoga and the characteristics of the soul practicing yoga. From verse 5 to verse 10, self-progress and the inspiration to make your mind your best friend. From verse 11 to verse 19, the method to sit for meditation. From verse 20 to verse 32, the characteristics and experience of the one who is the embodiment of yoga, that is, the one who is completely in that form of meditation. From verse 33 to verse 36, the topic of the restraint of the mind. And from verse 37 to verse 47, the praise of meditation and the subject of the result of the ones whose yoga is adulterated. So various questions that he has asked. And when Arjuna asks, who is a real yogi? So God says, hey Arjuna, a real yogi or a renunciate is the one who does not keep the desire of the fruit of the action. Again and again he repeatedly mentions this. He performs while performing it and renunciates the very thought that generates desire for all those material objects which are for sensual happiness. He does not take his mind into that aspect. The one whose mind is within his control and always occupies himself in some purposeful task with a lot of pleasantness is said to have a very good stage while practicing yoga. The first thing to practice yoga is, I should not do yoga or meditation as a compulsion, but first have the happiness of doing it. When we are doing out of compulsion, oh, now I have to do this, otherwise I don't know what will happen. No, not with this stage, not with an unhappy feeling. When we are sitting in meditation, whom are we connecting ourselves to? The Supreme Authority. Just imagine if a person in today's age has got an appointment to meet the president of the country or the prime minister of the country. He's got that letter that on a particular day, from this time to this time, he can come and meet. Just think about the stage he is in. How happy he feels. He will be telling out to so many, you know, I've got this appointment. I'm going to meet him. I'm going to meet. He's so full of happiness. Whom is he going to meet? A worldly personality. But still he has that happiness. Or such a great figure maybe who has given him an appointment, okay, on a particular day you can come and I'll meet you. He tells out to so many people. He's so happy for that meeting. Maybe he goes 1 hour before. Doesn't matter if he has to sit there so that he doesn't lose time maybe in the traffic or some way he doesn't get jammed. Otherwise the time will be over. So conscious about it. And not only that, maybe that night he cannot sleep also. What he will talk, how he will talk, how he would be. That is constantly going on. So whom are we meeting in meditation? The Supreme Being. And if I am meeting the supreme authority of the whole universe, what should my stage be? I should be so happy to meet that Supreme Being. And what will talk to him? We have so many nice thoughts. When I sit for meditation, I'll talk to him like this. I'll talk to him like this. And just see how, as if your feet are not on the floor, you're flying. You feel so light within. You forget about the whole world at that time. Because whom are you having this meeting with? So that should be the stage. We do not think about the fruits at that time. Oh, I'll ask from him this. We feel so silly on the self, meeting such a personality and asking for small things maybe, small desires. If the king's son, the prince, goes up to the king and says, with hands bowed and pleads in front of him, "Oh Father, please fulfill this desire of mine." When you are fulfilling the desires of so many, can you just fulfill this small desire of mine? Wouldn't he look foolish? Whose child is he? And in front of whom is he saying this? When he knows I'm the prince, whatever my father's property is my property, he would not beg. Everything is at his service. So this is the consciousness I have to have within myself. That is why again and again. Why? Because Arjuna's stage was that. In the first chapter, when the Vishad was there, "Oh God," and lamenting upon the consequences, "Can you please help me? I don't want to fight this war. I don't want the kingdom of heaven also. I don't want this. I don't want that. I'm satisfied with whatever I have." Whom is he talking to? So that is why God was also smiling at him. He was desiring for those near and dear ones, maybe who are not worthy, to stay. So when I am meeting with God, if I am a real yogi, I don't think of anything else at that time. Everything seems to be so worthless for me in front of this meeting. And I sit in that intoxication. And with that intoxication, when I just go in front of him, as if he fills me with all the power. He fills me with all the capacities. He makes me feel so relaxed, so comfortable. Just go in